The phone buzzed loudly, shattering the morning silence. I opened my eyes, blinking a few times to regain awareness. Glancing at the screen, I saw a familiar name flash across it, Mrs. Thompson. She was my grandfather's longtime neighbor, Joe Miller, who had passed away nearly a year ago. During his years in Meadowcreek, she and my grandfather had become close friends. She never called me at this hour unless it was an emergency. I quickly answered, "Alex, you need to come back right away." Her voice was shaky, as if she was trying to hold back anger. "They're building on your land." Sleep vanished instantly. I sat up abruptly, my eyes wide. "Who's they?" "Sunny Pines. They brought excavators yesterday, started digging. Now they've put up a billboard. They say it's a luxury housing project." "Oh, Alex, you have to come back now." I tried to stay calm, but my heart pounded. Maybe it's just a mistake. "I'll check." "A mistake?" I saw the contract they posted. They claim they've owned the land since last year. A chill ran down my spine. I gripped my phone tighter, my mind racing. My grandfather had never mentioned selling the land, and according to his will, the entire 200 acres belonged to me after he passed. How could they be building on it? "Mrs. Thompson, I'm coming back." Without wasting another second, I jumped out of bed, grabbed some clothes, and shoved them into a suitcase. I didn't care about work, missed meetings, or anything else in the city. The only thing that mattered now was getting to Meadowcreek and uncovering the truth. The 5-hour drive back to Meadowcreek had never felt so long. I sped down the highway, a storm of worry churning inside me. My hometown was a quiet place, surrounded by endless fields and rustic wooden houses. My grandfather had spent his entire life here, tending to the farm as a family legacy. I grew up on that land, running through cornfields, helping him care for the cattle, and listening to his stories of the past. But as I got older, life pulled me away. College in the city, a busy job, fewer visits than I should have made. And now I was returning, not to see him, but to protect what was his. As I turned onto the dirt road leading to the farm, the sight before me made my stomach drop. The lush green fields I remembered were gone. Instead, the land was torn apart, marked with wooden stakes, heavy machinery roaring through thick clouds of dust. A massive sign stood at the entrance. Future home of Sunny Pines East 96 luxury homes, starting at $450,000. I gripped the steering wheel tighter. Anger surged as I watched dozens of workers move across the site, marking plots. Bulldozers tore through the rich soil my grandfather had cultivated for years. I slammed my foot on the gas, driving straight into the construction zone. Workers turned to glare at me, but I didn't care. I braked hard in front of a truck loaded with building materials and jumped out. Nearby, a woman stood, white blouse, beige slacks, clipboard in hand. She didn't seem the least bit bothered by the chaos around her. I strode over. "Excuse me, who gave you permission to build here?" She looked up, scanning me from head to toe with a measured gaze. "We have full permits." Her voice was cool, professional. "Diane Reynolds, president of Sunny Pines HOA. And you are?" "Alex Miller. This is my land." Diane's smile faltered slightly, but she quickly regained her composure. "Oh, I believe there's been a misunderstanding." I clenched my fists. "There's no misunderstanding. This was my grandfather's land, Joe Miller. He passed away last year, and I inherited the farm. He never sold this property." Diane tilted her head, her eyes sharp. "Sunny Pines purchased this land last year. If Mr. Miller was the legal owner, then who signed the contract selling it to us?" Her question stopped me cold. I stared at her, a shiver running down my spine. There was no way my grandfather had sold the land without telling me. And even if he had considered selling, he would never have sold to a corporation like Sunny Pines. Something wasn't right. "I'll be looking into this." My voice was firm. Diane shrugged. "Go ahead. But I assure you, all the paperwork is legal. If you have an issue, take it to court." She turned away, continuing her work as if I didn't exist. I looked around, frustration and fury boiling inside me. I wasn't going to let this end easily. I stood in the middle of the dusty construction site, my heart pounding in my chest. The bulldozers kept digging, the workers carried on as if I wasn't even there. Diane Reynolds, the president of Sunny Pines HOA, had coldly told me to take it to court if I had a problem. But I had no intention of letting this go easily. I needed proof. I needed to know how they got this land, asterisk asterisk. Taking a deep breath, I turned back to my car, started the engine, and sped straight to Mrs. Thompson's house. She lived in a small wooden house about a mile from my grandfather's farm. As soon as I pulled up in the driveway, she rushed out, her face filled with worry. "Alex, you see? I told you." "I saw it, Mrs. Thompson." I nodded, my anger still simmering. "Do you know how they got the deed to the land?" She frowned and pulled me inside. She brewed a cup of hot tea and set it in front of me. I only heard bits and pieces from people in town. Everyone says Joe sold the land to Sunny Pines about a year ago. I clenched my fists. "That's impossible." Mrs. Thompson sighed, her gaze distant. I didn't believe it either. Joe loved that land more than anything. I remember the day he showed me the original land map passed down from his father. He always said that no matter what happened, the land would stay in the Miller family. I froze. The original land map? What are you talking about? Joe had an old set of documents, including the original boundary map from a century ago. I remember he always kept it in his safe. My pulse quickened. If those documents still existed, they could prove my rightful ownership of the land. "Do you know where that safe is?" Mrs. Thompson thought for a moment, then nodded. "It's still in his storage shed, but I think you'll have some trouble getting it open." It didn't take me long to drive back to the farm. My grandfather's old wooden house still stood there, though time had left its marks. I pushed open the door, feeling like I was stepping into the past. I searched the house, but all I found were regular documents. It wasn't until I entered the back storage shed that I finally saw the safe. It was tucked behind a pile of old farming tools. The safe was large, and of course, I didn't have the combination. I tried a few familiar numbers, my grandfather's birthday, my grandmother's passing date, but none of them worked. Leaning against the wall, I exhaled heavily. I needed help. I scrolled through my phone contacts until I stopped at a familiar name, Ethan Carter. Ethan had been my childhood best friend. Now, he worked as a police officer in Meadowcreek. If anyone could help me open this safe without getting into legal trouble, it was him. I hit call. "Alex? Oh man, it's been a long time. You back in town?" "Ethan, I need your help. It's serious." I wasn't the type to easily believe in dark conspiracies, but everything about this situation smelled like a scam. My grandfather would never have sold his land, especially not to a construction corporation. And if he had, why hadn't I seen any paperwork when I inherited the estate? I stepped out of the storage shed, my phone still pressed to my ear as Ethan picked up the call. "Alex? Oh man, it's been a long time. You back in town?" "Yeah, but not for a vacation. I'm in big trouble, Ethan. I need your help opening my grandfather's old safe. I think there are important documents inside related to his land." Ethan was silent for a moment before replying. "Do you have a key or the combination?" "No, but I have a feeling my grandfather hid it somewhere around here." "All right, I'll swing by. Give me about 30 minutes. I hung up and stood in the shed for a moment, sensing that something wasn't right. If I were my grandfather and I wanted to protect an important document, I wouldn't lock it in a safe without a way to access it. I started searching around, looking for anything that might hold a clue: old wooden shelves, dusty drawers, a few rusted toolboxes. And then, behind an old wooden cabinet, I spotted a small metal box, worn but still intact. I picked it up, my heartbeat quickening. When I opened the lid, inside was a small piece of paper with a 4-digit code written in blue ink, 1927. By the time Ethan arrived, I was ready to try it. "You sure about this?" Ethan raised an eyebrow as I pointed to the numbers on the paper. "Not sure, but it's worth a shot." I turned the dial on the safe, 19227. A soft click sounded. I held my breath and pulled the safe door open. Inside was a stack of old documents, some file folders yellowed with age. And right on top, I saw my grandfather's original land map. I unfolded it, examining the details carefully. The land that Sunny Pines was building on still belonged to my family. I looked at Ethan, who was also scanning the map with a serious expression. Alex, do you realize what this means? Yeah, I nodded, gripping the paper tightly. They're building on my land, and they don't even know it. Ethan let out a low whistle. So, what are you gonna do? I smiled. I'm going to give them a surprise. My heart pounded as I flipped through the documents inside the safe. The pages were yellowed, some corners frayed and torn, but the contents remained clear. My grandfather's land map from 1927 explicitly outlined the boundaries of his property. Comparing it to the map Sunny Pines HOA used for their construction permit, I quickly spotted a crucial discrepancy. The land they were building on belonged entirely to my family. I turned to another document, an official land use contract signed in 1955, which clearly stated, all land rights remain with the Miller family and cannot be transferred without the signature of the legal owner. But I had never signed anything, and I was certain my grandfather hadn't either. I glanced at Ethan, who was reading alongside me, his expression serious. He nodded thoughtfully. Alex, if these documents are valid, you could sue Sunny Pines for trespassing. I clenched my fists, feeling a mix of excitement and anger. I'm not just going to sue them, Ethan. I'm going to make them pay for messing with my family's land. If Sunny Pines believed they had purchased the land legally, someone must have forged documents or conducted an illegal transaction. I needed to find out who was behind this. Ethan and I sat down and organized the files. One particular document caught my attention, a copy of a land transfer deed stamped by the local government, dated May 12th of last year. Seller, Joseph Miller, my grandfather. Buyer, Sunny Pines Development Corporation. My stomach dropped. My grandfather had passed away in March. But this document was signed in May. No way, this is a forgery. I muttered. Ethan frowned. If Joe's signature was faked, this is a serious case of fraud. I took a deep breath. We need to verify this signature. I didn't want to go public with this just yet. If I exposed everything too soon, Sunny Pines might cover their tracks or destroy evidence. I had to act carefully. Step 1 asterisk I'd take these documents to a handwriting expert for verification. Step 2 asterisk I'd find out who handled this transaction at the town office. Ethan agreed to help. He had a friend working at Meadowcreek's legal office who could check the legitimacy of these records. Before leaving, I carefully placed all the documents into a sturdy file case, locked it, and carried it with me. I wasn't going to lose this evidence. The next morning, I woke up early, my mind still flooded with questions. If my grandfather had passed away in March, who had signed the land transfer documents in May? I drove to Meadowcreek and headed to a law office Ethan had recommended. The handwriting expert, Mr. Daniel Carter, was a seasoned professional with over 30 years of experience. When I handed him the document, he carefully took out a magnifying glass and examined every stroke of the signature. After about 15 minutes of silence, Mr. Carter looked at me over his thick glasses. This signature appears to be forged. I tensed. Can you be sure? He nodded and pulled out a folder from his desk drawer. Here are your grandfather's signatures on previous official documents. Compared to the one on this contract, there's a clear difference. This signature is stiffer, lacking natural flow. I believe it was clumsily copied. Rage flared inside me. Someone had forged my grandfather's signature to steal my family's land. Can you provide me with an official authentication report? Of course, but it will take a day or two. I nodded, thanked him, and left the office. In my mind, a plan for revenge was already taking shape. I decided to find out who was behind this fraudulent sale. My first target was the town's notary office. If the contract had been legally certified, someone there had to know about it. I stepped into the small building where a reception desk and several offices lined the walls. A middle-aged woman named Karen Holloway, a clerk, greeted me with a friendly smile. Hello, how can I help you? I forced myself to stay calm. I'm looking for information on a land transaction signed last May. The seller was Joe Miller. The moment I mentioned my grandfather's name, Karen froze. I immediately sensed something was off. "Oh, yes, let me check." She turned around, opened a filing drawer, and searched through the records. I noticed her hands were trembling slightly, a telltale sign of nervousness. After a few minutes, she handed me a copy of the paperwork. I took it and examined it carefully. The name of the notary who certified the contract was Franklin Marsh. I frowned. Franklin Marsh. That name sounded familiar. As soon as I stepped out of the office, I called Ethan. "Ethan, do you know anyone named Franklin Marsh?" "Of course," Ethan answered immediately. "He's the legal representative for Sunny Pines." That was it. Sunny Pines wasn't just illegally building on my land, they had used their own lawyer to legitimize a fraudulent sale. I knew I couldn't act recklessly. I needed solid proof before confronting Sunny Pines directly. Next step I would attend Sunny Pines community meeting, where they planned to unveil their development project. And there, I would expose everything. After leaving the notary office, I drove back to my grandfather's old farm. Everything looked just as I remembered: the simple wooden house, the aging barn, and the vast fields that had now been taken over by Sunny Pines. I stepped inside the house, where the memories of Joe Miller still lingered. As I searched through old documents, I discovered a locked wooden chest in the basement. Digging through the desk drawers, I finally found the key and opened it. Inside, I found old maps of the farm, along with several land ownership documents that my grandfather had kept for years. These papers could be the key to reclaiming the land. However, the most shocking discovery was a handwritten letter from my grandfather, dated 1 week before he passed away. If you're reading this, I may already be gone. I don't know what's coming, but something isn't right. Never trust the people at Sunny Pines. They don't have good intentions. I gripped the paper tightly, anger surging through me. My grandfather had suspected something before his death, but he hadn't had the chance to warn me. Sunny Pines had planned this land grab all along. I decided to confront Franklin Marsh, Sunny Pines' lawyer, to see how he would react. I headed to his law office in the center of town. The 3-story building was sleek and modern, a stark contrast to the rural landscape of Meadowcreek. As I entered, a secretary stopped me. "Do you have an appointment?" "No, but I think Franklin Marsh will want to speak with me." My firm tone seemed to work, because within minutes, I was ushered into his office. Franklin Marsh was a man in his 60s, with graying hair and gold-rimmed glasses. He stared at me for a moment before offering a fake smile. "Mr. Miller, I assume you're here about the land?" I placed a copy of my grandfather's land deed on his desk. "Can you explain why I found a forged signature on this document?" Marsh raised an eyebrow but remained composed. "I have no idea what you're talking about. All of Sunny Pines' paperwork is legal." "Is that so? Then how do you explain this signature analysis?" I tossed Mr. Carter's report onto the desk. This time, I saw a flicker of hesitation in his expression. "Mr. Miller, if you believe there's been wrongdoing, you're welcome to sue. But I suggest you think carefully. Sunny Pines is a powerful corporation with some of the best lawyers around." I met his gaze, unwavering. "I won't just sue. I'll make sure the entire town knows that Sunny Pines is run by frauds." Marsh's hands clenched. "You'll regret this." I smirked. "We'll see who regrets it." I turned and walked out. I knew I had just provoked a dangerous enemy, but I wasn't afraid. That night, as I returned to the farm, I received an anonymous phone call. "Miller, if you're smart, you'll leave town immediately." The voice was deep, cold. A chill ran down my spine. "And if I don't?" "Accidents happen. Houses burn. People disappear." I gripped the phone tightly. "Try me." I hung up, knowing this fight had only just begun. After the threatening call, I knew I couldn't take this lightly. I decided to go to the Meadowcreek police station the next morning to report it. The officer on duty was a middle-aged man named Officer Daniels. He looked unimpressed as I explained the situation. "An anonymous call? No number? No evidence? Tough case, kid." I held back my frustration. "What about Sunny Pines forging land documents? Here's a notarized record." Daniels glanced at the papers, then shrugged. If that's true, you should hire a lawyer and take it to court. And what if someone burns down my house or attacks me? Then call 911. I clenched my fists. It was clear the local police wanted nothing to do with Sunny Pines. Maybe they had been bought off. As I left the station, I realized if I wanted to fight this, I needed allies. Leaving the police station, I felt the weight of the situation pressing down on me. I needed someone who could help me in this fight. I thought of Jake Carter, a childhood friend of mine who was now an investigative journalist in Meadowcreek. I found him at a small cafe where he usually worked. When he saw me, Jake looked surprised but greeted me with a handshake. "Hey, where the hell have you been all these years?" "Long story. I need your help exposing a corruption case." Jake raised an intrigued eyebrow as I filled him in. "Sounds like a big scam. I need proof to bring them down." Jake nodded. "You came to the right guy." That night, I returned to the farm. The sky was pitch black, with only the faint glow of the moon over the fields. As I stepped into the house, a shadow flickered past the window. I grabbed my grandfather's old hunting rifle and stepped outside. "Who's there?" No answer. But I heard footsteps running in the dark. I took off after them, but the figure had already vanished into the woods. When I got back to the house, I found a note pinned to the door. "Leave now or you'll regret it." Rage flared inside me. They thought they could scare me? They had just made a huge mistake. Jake's article didn't just stir up the people of Meadowcreek, it also caught the attention of major news outlets. Within a day, multiple media sites had picked up the story about Sunny Pines land scandal. On social media, the hashtag Sunny Pines scandal started trending. Hundreds of angry comments flooded in. How can a corporation forge documents so blatantly? Hope the authorities step in immediately. The rightful heir must take back their land. I watched the news unfold, feeling a sense of satisfaction. Diane Reynolds and her lackeys were undoubtedly in trouble. But I couldn't let my guard down. Scammers like them wouldn't give up so easily. That afternoon, I received an unexpected call. Diane Reynolds. Her voice was as cold as when we first met. But this time, there was a hint of tension beneath it. "We need to talk." "I have nothing to say to you," I replied, trying to stay calm. "Oh, I think you do. My office. 7 p.m. tonight. If you don't show up, the consequences will be unpredictable." She hung up immediately. I thought for a moment. Clearly, Sunny Pines was feeling threatened. But should I risk walking into their territory? I called Jake and told him everything. He objected instantly. "Listen, this could be a trap. They already tried to get rid of you once." "I know, but I need to find out what they're planning." After a few minutes of back and forth, I decided to go, but not alone. I had Jake and a few trusted friends secretly watch the meeting. If anything happened, they would call the police immediately. At exactly 7 p.m., I stepped into the Sunny Pines HOA headquarters. The office was spacious and luxurious, but the atmosphere inside felt icy and suffocating. Diane sat behind a massive wooden desk, flanked by 2 men in black suits, clearly her bodyguards. She narrowed her eyes at me, then slid a folder across the desk. "How much do you want?" I tilted my head in confusion. "What do you mean? How much money for you to walk away? 1 million? 2 million? Just drop the case and let Sunny Pines continue the project, and you'll be a rich man." I let out a scoff. "You think I'm doing this for money? This is my family's land." Diane sighed, looking disappointed. "You're a fool. Do you even know who you're up against?" "I know exactly who I'm up against. A fraud and a forger." "No. You're up against people far more powerful than you realize. If you keep this up, you'll lose more than just your land." She jerked her chin, and the 2 bodyguards stepped toward me. "I suggest you think carefully." I felt the danger, but I couldn't show weakness. I stood up, locking eyes with Diane. "You picked the wrong person to threaten. I'm not backing down." Then I turned and walked out of the office, refusing to show fear. But deep inside, I knew the real battle had only just begun. That night, as I returned to my motel in Meadowcreek, something felt off. The room was pitch dark. I slowly pushed the door open, scanning my surroundings. Suddenly, a shadow lunged at me from the corner. I dodged just in time, but the attacker still landed a heavy punch on my shoulder. Pain shot through me, but I had no time to react. He pulled out a knife. Survival instinct kicked in. I lashed out with a sharp kick to his hand, knocking the blade to the floor. He scrambled to grab it, but I quickly punched him hard across the face, sending him staggering back. At that moment, Jake burst in, wielding a baseball bat. "Cops are on their way. You better run, asshole." The attacker cursed, then bolted for the window and jumped out. I gasped for breath, looking at Jake with gratitude. "You just saved my life. We need to get out of here now. They're not going to stop." I nodded. "Then neither will we. Sunny Pines is going to pay for this." After the attack in my rental room, I couldn't stay there any longer. Jake suggested that I temporarily stay at his place, a small house but much safer than the rental. "I don't know what they'll try next, but things will definitely get worse." "I think so too. We need to act before they strike again." I decided to focus all my energy on this legal battle. We began carefully examining all of my grandfather's documents, old maps, land purchase contracts, tax receipts. I wanted to make sure there were no loopholes that Sunny Pines could exploit. After hours of flipping through pages, I discovered an important document, a detailed hand-drawn map from 1968, created by my grandfather himself. This map clearly showed the real boundaries of the farm. And more importantly, it didn't match the map that Sunny Pines was using. I smiled triumphantly. We just found the most crucial piece of evidence. Knowing that I couldn't fight alone, I sought help from a local law office. Jake introduced me to Lisa Carter, a sharp attorney with years of experience handling land disputes. Lisa carefully read through the documents I provided, occasionally furrowing her brow in deep thought. Finally, she looked up, her eyes filled with excitement. "If this map is real and can be verified, you'll have an incredibly powerful legal weapon. Can we take down Sunny Pines? Not only can we, but we can also sue them for illegal land appropriation and legal fraud." I felt hope rising. But I also knew that Sunny Pines wouldn't give up easily. Lisa advised me to keep this discovery a secret until we had gathered enough evidence and officially filed the lawsuit. "We'll hit them with a surprise right at their own meeting." A week later, I received a letter from Sunny Pines HOA. It wasn't a threat, nor was it a buyout offer. Instead, it was a summons. They were inviting me to attend a Sunny Pines community meeting where they would discuss their development project on the disputed land. They're trying to legitimize the construction by making it public. Lisa analyzed. "They think that if I show up, it means I acknowledge their project." I said, "But I had a different plan." I decided to attend and expose them right at the meeting. Lisa, Jake, and several Meadowcreek residents would accompany me. Let's make them fall into their own trap. That day, the Sunny Pines meeting hall was packed. Mostly wealthy residents of the new neighborhood, along with some key investors. Diane Reynolds stood at the podium, exuding her usual confidence. "The Sunny Pines East project will bring immense value to the community. With 96 luxury homes, we will create an upscale and civilized neighborhood." Applause erupted, but I could see that many local residents were unconvinced. As Diane was about to finish her speech, I stood up. "I have a question." The room fell silent, all eyes turning toward me. Diane tried to stay composed. "What do you want to say?" I held up my grandfather's map. "You claim that Sunny Pines legally purchased this land. But according to my grandfather's original records, this entire area still legally belongs to me." A wave of murmuring spread through the crowd. Diane lost her confidence. Lisa stepped forward, holding a stack of documents. "These are legal proofs showing that Sunny Pines HOA forged documents to illegally seize this land." The entire hall erupted in chatter. Diane turned pale. This is false information." I looked her straight in the eye. "Do you want us to present all this evidence in court right now?" Diane was speechless. Investors began murmuring, some looking furious. Clearly, they hadn't been aware of this fraud. An older man stood up, glaring at Diane with disgust. "You deceived all of us?" Diane said nothing, silently stepping down from the podium, walking out of the meeting under the contemptuous gazes of everyone. I smiled. The game is over. After the meeting, Sunny Pines HOA's downfall happened rapidly. Investors pulled out en masse, and the project was immediately suspended. The police launched an investigation into Diane and those involved for real estate fraud. The media covered the scandal extensively, turning it into one of Meadowcreek's most significant legal cases. And most importantly, I reclaimed my grandfather's land. One early morning, I stood on the eastern hill, overlooking the vast fields my grandfather had farmed for years. The wind rustled through the trees, carrying the familiar scent of the countryside. I protected it, Grandpa. Jake walked up beside me, patting my shoulder. You did it. I took a deep breath, feeling a peace I had never experienced before. Finally, justice had prevailed. The Sunny Pines community meeting ended in chaos, and its consequences spread quickly. Within just a week, a wave of news erupted in both local newspapers and national media. Land scandal. Sunny Pines HOA accused of illegally seizing 200 acres. Angry investors pull out of multi-million-dollar project. Diane Reynolds and Sunny Pines management under fraud investigation. I stared at my computer screen, reading and rereading each headline with a mix of relief and anxiety. I had won a battle, but the real war was just beginning. 3 days after the meeting, I received an email from one of Sunny Pines' legal representatives. We would like to propose a negotiation to resolve this matter peacefully. I scoffed. Peacefully? After they nearly stole my land? But Lisa, my lawyer, advised me to go. We still have to play by the rules. If they offer a favorable deal, we can use it to our advantage. So the next morning, Lisa and I arrived at the Sunny Pines Development Headquarters, a sleek glass building in the heart of Meadowcreek. We were led into a large conference room, where 4 sharply dressed lawyers were already waiting. A gray-haired man stood up and extended his hand. Hello, I'm Richard Cole, Chief Legal Counsel for Sunny Pines. I didn't shake his hand. Let's get straight to the point. Richard smiled, but I could see the tension in his eyes. Sunny Pines is willing to compensate you with $2 million in exchange for dropping the lawsuit and allowing the project to proceed. Lisa raised an eyebrow, but I wasn't surprised. This is how they try to buy my silence. I looked at Richard, my voice firm. This land has been in my family for generations. I don't need your money. I want justice. The room fell silent. Richard sighed. I urge you to reconsider. This legal battle could drag on for years. No one wants that. I held his gaze. I'm ready. The very next day, Lisa officially filed the lawsuit in court. The lawsuit accused Sunny Pines and Diane Reynolds of illegal land seizure, forgery of legal documents, investor fraud. 3 days later, I got a call from Lisa. They just hired a legal team from New York. This is going to be a real fight. I wasn't surprised. With the kind of money Sunny Pines had, they would do anything to avoid going to court. But I had no intention of backing down. One morning, Lisa called me, her voice filled with excitement. We just found something very interesting. She sent me a set of documents her investigation team had uncovered. It was a series of internal emails between Diane Reynolds and several high-ranking figures at Sunny Pines. I don't care how you got that land, as long as the project isn't delayed. Diane Reynolds, in an email to the CEO of Sunny Pines Development. If anyone finds out, we can fabricate a fake contract. As long as our lawyers do their job, no one will be able to challenge this. Another email from Sunny Pines' internal legal counsel. I clenched my fists. They knew they were breaking the law, but still tried to cover it up. Lisa smirked. With this evidence, we won't just win the lawsuit, we can send them to prison. A few days later, I ran into Diane Reynolds at a cafe downtown. She looked different. Gone was the confident, arrogant demeanor. Instead, she looked tired and anxious. I walked up to her table, my voice laced with meaning. You don't look so well, Diane. She looked up, her eyes filled with anger. You ruined my career. I met her gaze. No, you ruined it yourself when you tried to deceive the world. She gripped her coffee cup tightly, but said nothing. I placed a printed copy of the internal emails in front of her. Would you like to turn yourself in, or should I let the FBI handle it? Diane's face went pale. She knew she had no way out. 2 weeks later, Diane Reynolds was arrested for fraud and forgery. Sunny Pines Development officially declared bankruptcy, and the entire project was canceled. And me? I reclaimed my grandfather's 200 acres in full. But that wasn't all. The court ordered Sunny Pines to compensate me with $5 million for the damages they caused. I could have become a millionaire, but I decided not to take the money. Instead, I used it to restore my grandfather's farm, turning it into a nature reserve and organic farming site. Standing in the vast open fields, I took a deep breath. I did it, Grandpa. After reclaiming my grandfather's land, I decided to stay in Meadowcreek longer than planned. At first, I intended to return to the city once everything was settled. But as I stood amidst the vast green fields, breathing in the fresh air, I realized, this is what home truly feels like. Memories from my childhood flooded back. I remembered the days when I ran across the fields, helped my grandfather tend to the crops, and listened to his stories on the front porch. After years of being away, I had found a part of myself again. However, the farm had been abandoned for too long. The fields were overgrown with weeds, and many areas had been flattened by Sunny Pines' heavy machinery. I knew I had to get to work immediately. If Grandpa were still here, he would want this place to thrive again. I began drafting a restoration plan, clearing the fields, repairing the irrigation system, preparing the soil for a new planting season, creating a small nature reserve to preserve the land's natural beauty. But to do all of this, I needed a team. One morning, while I was busy inspecting the old barns, a familiar voice called out behind me. Thought you'd already gone back to the city? I turned around and recognized Jake, a childhood friend and my grandfather's former neighbor. Jake smiled at me warmly. Are you planning to restore this farm? I nodded. That's right. But I can't do it alone. Jake laughed. Well, lucky for you. I and a few folks from the village are ready to help. I couldn't believe my ears. Really? Jake nodded. Your grandfather helped a lot of people here in the past. Now it's our turn to give back. His words warmed my heart. I never imagined I would receive support from the very people in this village. From that day on, I worked with a group of nearly 10 people to bring the farm back to life. Jake and a few strong men cleared out the debris. Mary, who once worked on the farm, helped me assess the soil. The young men in the village repaired the barns and livestock enclosures. The work wasn't easy. We had to clear out the areas flattened by machines, rebuild the irrigation system, and remove overgrown weeds. Yet, no one complained. Everyone laughed, shared stories about the days they spent working with my grandfather. I felt like I truly belonged here. After a month of hard work, the farm started to take shape again. The fields turned lush and green. The irrigation system ran smoothly. The barns and livestock enclosures were fully restored. One afternoon, I stood on the eastern hill, overlooking the vast land before me. I did it, Grandpa. But I knew this was only the beginning. I didn't just want to restore the farm, I wanted to turn it into a sustainable agricultural model, where people could learn about organic farming and nature conservation. Meadowcreek had once been a part of my past. Now it would become my future. ### lessons from reclaiming the family farm. This journey of reclaiming the farm carries powerful lessons about ownership, perseverance, and the value of one's roots. Here are some key takeaways. 1. Protect what's rightfully yours. The protagonist had to fight to keep his grandfather's land, proving that ownership isn't just about legal documents but also about history, memories, and emotional significance. Lesson *: never let others take away what belongs to you, especially when it's your family's legacy. 2. Perseverance and never giving up. Despite facing Sunny Pines schemes and the destruction caused by the storm, the protagonist persisted in rebuilding the farm. Lesson *: success doesn't come easy. Only those who endure and push forward will achieve their dreams. 3. The power of community. At first, the protagonist thought he had to fight alone. But he soon found support from the village people, who cherished his grandfather and were eager to help. Lesson asterisk sometimes, you don't have to carry the burden alone. Trust in those around you. Unity can overcome any challenge. 4. The value of one's roots. The protagonist had been away from home, busy with city life. But upon returning, he realized that the farm wasn't just land. It was a connection to his past, his family, and himself. Lesson asterisk, never forget where you come from. Sometimes, happiness isn't found in luxury, but in the things that feel most familiar. Final thought. This story is a journey of perseverance, fighting for justice, and honoring family heritage. It teaches us that never give up on what truly matters, no matter how hard it gets. What are your thoughts on this story?